very good morning. You're watching Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Tina Jha. Let's start with the headlines first. Opposition protests could land the GST and the land bill with parliament committees. Uproar expected in both houses today. Unrelenting attack on Union Minister Nitin Gadkari set to continue. Opposition demands his resignation over CAG report on Purti Group. Home Minister Rajnath Singh assures Parliament that the government will do everything to bring back Dawood Ibrahim from Pakistan. Islamabad refutes India's claim that the underworld Dawn is in Pakistan. And Greece faces exit from the Eurozone as it struggles to meet deadlines to repay debt of a bailout. Well, a day after an uproarious session in the upper house, the Goods and Services Tax Bill is slated to be taken up today in the Rajya Sabha. With only 2 more days left for the ongoing session, it's getting difficult for the government to see the bill through in the upper house. According to sources, the centre is likely to accept the opposition's demand to refer it to a select committee.
The Constitution Amendment Bill on GST figures in the list of business in Rajya Sabha today. It requires a 2/3 majority in the upper house to ratify the changes proposed for this key tax reform. Key opposition party Congress is insisting on a legislative scrutiny for the measure, claiming that provisions of the earlier bill have been changed and needed a relook. Though there is a broad consensus on the bill, other parties are also calling for a closer look.
Well, we are in favor of GST. We were the ones who brought the GST. But we have told the government that they should not be, rigid. They should not make it a prestige issue and bulldoze it through the parliament. They must respect the justification of parliamentary scrutiny. And after the select committee, it can be brought in the monsoon session and passed.
Opposition unity को बचाने के लिए और मजबूत करने के लिए हम लोग जो बाकी पार्टियों का एटीट्यूड होगा अपोजिशन पार्टियों का उसके साथ हम लोग रहेंगे. वैसे जीएसटी से बहुत हम लोगों को कोई एतराज उस तरह का नहीं है.
The bill sailed through Lok Sabha last week. Congress staged a walkout, easing its passage with a clear 2/3 majority. However, the ruling BJP has accused Congress of trying to scuttle the bill in the upper house.
कांग्रेस पार्टी जो प्रोग्रेस देश की का प्रोग्रेस और प्रॉस्पेरिटी के प्रयास हैं उसमें पॉलिटिकल पलीता लगाने की कोशिश कर रही है और प्रोग्रेस और प्रॉस्पेरिटी के किसी भी प्रयास पर कांग्रेस के पॉलिटिकल पलीता लगाने के प्रयास कभी भी सफल नहीं होंगे क्योंकि देश जो है वो आज तरक्की के रास्ते पर तेजी से चल रहा है और चलना चाहता है. इसलिए अगर हम जीएसटी की बात करते हैं तो टैक्स टेररिज्म खत्म करना चाहते हैं.
BJP's parliamentary party met last night to discuss the way forward on key bills pending passage in either houses. According to sources, the party is likely to accept the demands of the opposition to send the bill to a select panel for further considerations. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The Rajya Sabha could witness uproar over the CAG report on Purti Group today as well. The Congress is likely to step up its demand to remove Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari. The House was adjourned yesterday after continuous protests from opposition on the issue.
Turmoil in Rajya Sabha over corruption charges against Union Minister Nitin Gadkari is expected to continue today. Congress has hinted that it will keep up its offensive against the government till he steps down to ensure a fair and open inquiry. He is linked to Purti Group, which has been indicted in a CAG report alleging irregularities. Gadkari made a statement in the House yesterday denying any wrongdoing.
मैं बता देना चाहता हूं कि हमारे इसमें कोई सब्सिडी हमको मिली नहीं है, हमने कोई गलत फायदा उठाया नहीं है. ये पूरी तरह से अब राजनीतिक प्रेरित से हो रहा है और इसलिए अगर ये आप तो मेरी बात को समझकर
His statement failed to satisfy the opposition parties.
2007 में इस पूरे प्रोजेक्ट को एनपीए कर दिया, नॉन परफॉर्मिंग एसेट, और जब एनपीए 2007 में किया उसके बाद वो लोन कैसे ले सकते हैं? बराबर लोन लेते रहे. इसलिए हमारी पार्टी बिल्कुल संतुष्ट नहीं है. लिहाजा हमारी पार्टी बिल्कुल इस जवाब से संतुष्ट नहीं है और उनको इस्तीफा देना पड़ेगा.
The guilt should be established and action to be taken. Okay. And until then, a person should not occupy the office so that he can influence the corruption.
With several opposition parties unrelenting on the demands to remove Gadkari, It remains to be seen what strategy the government adopts to let the House function smoothly for the next 2 days to push through some key legislations in the upper house. With inputs from Kriti Mishra, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, the land acquisition bill is also likely to be referred to a joint committee. A united opposition continued its resistance against the bill on Monday when it was tabled in the Lok Sabha. Sources now say the 30-member joint committee is likely to be headed by senior BJP leader S.S. Ahluwalia. A resolution to set up a joint committee is likely to be brought by the government in Lok Sabha today, following which it will be taken to Rajya Sabha for incorporating members from the upper house. Almost the entire opposition is against the bill that proposes changes in the earlier law of 2013. The bill was introduced in Lok Sabha yesterday amid strong protest from the opposition, which terms it as an anti-farmer legislation. Several opposition parties opposing the bill even staged a walkout. And to discuss further on the issue, we are being joined by Aditi Phadnis, political editor of the Business Standard. A very good morning, ma'am, and welcome to Rajya Sabha TV. Let's begin with the contentious land bill first. Now that the government is set to refer it to a joint committee, what does this mean? If you can explain to us, to our viewers, what does a joint committee mean? Does it mean that the government will now not have a time frame in which the legislation is to be passed?
Joint committees are not unknown in Parliament. There have been several joint parliamentary committees, the most famous one being on Bofors. There was a joint parliamentary committee which was headed by Dr. B. Shankaranand, which inquired into Bofors. Usually these parliamentary committees are reflect the presence of the parties in proportion. So if you have say 10 members of a particular party, one member will be on the joint parliamentary committee. What a joint committee is, I am not very clear about. I am not sure that it has any any legitimacy in parliamentary convention, but Parliament can do anything as long as they pass a resolution asking for X or Y committee. Because the government is in majority in the lower house, passing a resolution like that in the lower house will have no problem whatsoever. Taking leave of the Rajya Sabha to set up a joint joint committee may be a little more difficult. But having said that, what the opposition wants in essence is much more consultation, and they want much more discussion on the land bill. They have certain reservations about it, so I think it's quite appropriate that it should go to a joint committee, even if it means a little bit of a delay. As far as the time frame is concerned, it's not at all clear. I don't think you can have an open-ended parliamentary committee. There has to be a time frame by which the committee has to give its report. So now what the time frame will be, and will the terms of reference of a joint committee reflect that time frame, we have to wait and see.
That can be only seen when the resolution is moved and
So we have to see what kind of a resolution is moved in the Lok Sabha. Perhaps it's coming today.
Do you think the joint committee is being set up to save the government from the embarrassment it might have faced in Rajya Sabha, because there of course it's in a clear minority?
Well, if it's a fact of life that it's in a minority, so if it has to get legislation passed, it has to take the Rajya Sabha into account. The land bill is not money, it's not a money bill. So it's not as if Lok Sabha can pass it and it becomes a law. It doesn't work like that. The only regret is that so much time has been lost on the land bill that if the government had felt that the opposition is not wrong in seeking more consultation, it could have set up a parliamentary committee much earlier. The other option is also there, which is that if it fails in the Rajya Sabha, which now is not a possibility because a joint committee is being set up, it can call a joint parliamentary committee, a joint session of parliament, but that is a very long drawn process, which will perhaps the government wants to circumvent that.
There is another bill, the black money bill, which was passed in Lok Sabha yesterday. Now the opposition wants it also to be sent to a parliamentary panel, saying it's not a money bill as the government is portraying, and it has to pass the Rajya Sabha test. Do you think the government and also the opposition claims that it could prove draconian in the coming years? What is your opinion? Do you think the opposition has a valid point, or it's just behaving like an opposition and doing what the BJP did when it was in the opposition?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. There's no doubt that there are several provisions in the black money bill which are very worrying for foreign investors. There's also no doubt that it's not a money bill. So the speaker herself has said that it's not a money bill and therefore it should be it should go through. We have to wait and see whether what the Rajya Sabha is going to do with it. Otherwise, it will have to be sent to a standing committee and it will have to go through proper scrutiny. There are, as you recall, 3 or 4 bills which were to be passed as part of the budget, but because the opposition and the government and the speaker both agreed that they were not money bills, they were separated, excised from the budget and put aside. One of them was the creation of the Public Debt Management Office, for instance.
Also, the way in which the Congress is protesting against Nitin Gadkari, demanding his resignation yesterday, you know, the Rajya Sabha faced like as many as 9 adjournments. It's going to continue today as well. In such a scenario, do you think the last 2 days could practically see no legislative business?
I think it's very difficult for, I know the government wanted to and extended the session in the hope that it would do business, but the CAG report has come in the way. The Congress is doing what, as you rightly said, what the BJP did to it in the last 2 years of its... but still, despite that, we cannot deny that this government has been extraordinarily productive in its 1 year's tenure in Parliament. It has transacted in this budget session 121% of the business, which is quite extraordinary.
In fact, one of the reports I was reading yesterday even said that if these 3 bills could have been passed in this session, this could have been by far the most productive session, which unfortunately
it would have been a record of sorts because the budget session is not normally used to pass other legislation. It is usually only used for financial legislation. But that's the way it is, and I don't think any harm is done if the GST is postponed till the monsoon session. In any case, state governments still have to pass it. So, and out of 29 state governments, 12 are headed by the BJP. So, I don't think that's an insurmountable problem, and I am pretty sure that the government will still be able to keep its deadline of April 2016 to roll out the GST.
And despite the reports coming in that the government is going to refer it to a select committee, the GST bill, it's still going to table it in Rajya Sabha today. So I think we'll have to wait and watch and see what actually happens in the Rajya Sabha. Thank you, Aditi, for joining us this morning and giving us those details. Meanwhile, another big story, the Jayalalitha wave is set to surge in Tamil Nadu once again. After being acquitted by the court on Monday, it is just a matter of time before the AIADMK chief returns as the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. However, the party remains tight-lipped about its plans so far.
The stage is set for the return of Jayalalitha as the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. After the ruling by the Karnataka High Court in the 18-year-old disproportionate assets case, the AIADMK is preparing for its chief's return at the helm of affairs. However, the former Tamil Nadu Chief Minister has not revealed her plan of action after the big victory at the court on Monday. According to sources, AIADMK is likely to pick Jayalalitha as the leader of its legislative party soon, paving way for her return. Law requires her to get elected as MLA in 6 months after assuming office. The second option before her is to call for an early elections that were otherwise due in 2016. The court acquittal in the case has come as a rude shock to the DMK. Its party chief M. Karunanidhi's only reaction to the verdict was that it is not the end. He said, and I quote, "What has been pronounced today is not the final verdict. I would like to remind one and all about Mahatma Gandhi saying that there is a court above all courts, and that is conscience." But for the AIADMK, the verdict was long overdue.
ADMK cadres wholeheartedly welcomes the verdict from High Court of Bangalore, and after this verdict, immediately Amma will take the charge of CM in Tamil Nadu.
The political significance of the court order was evident as a stream of top leaders, including the Prime Minister, called up Jayalalitha to congratulate her. However, BJP leader Subramaniam Swamy, who filed the petition against Jayalalitha, is set to appeal against her acquittal in the Supreme Court. That, however, will be at a later date. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Let's now take a look at all the important events lined up for today in our segment, The Day Ahead. The Special Investigation Team on Black Money is likely to submit its status report in the Supreme Court on its probe so far. The Supreme Court had sought a status report from the SIT last month. The top court will also hear BJP leader Subramaniam Swamy's plea, suggesting ways to bring back untaxed money stashed abroad. Retail inflation and industrial output figures for last month will be released today. The retail inflation slowed down to 3 months low of to 5.2% in March 2015 from 5.4% in the previous month, while the industrial output increased 5% in February this year compared with the revised growth of 2.8% in January. US Secretary of State John Kerry is set to visit Russia today for the first time since the Ukraine crisis began. Kerry will meet his counterpart Sergei Lavrov and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Kerry is likely to discuss the ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and Syria, as well as the nuclear negotiations with Iran at the meet. US officials say the trip is part of an ongoing effort to maintain direct lines of communication with Russia. Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif will begin his visit to Afghanistan today. This is Sharif's second visit to the neighbouring country and the first since the installation of a national unity government in Kabul. Accompanied by Army Chief General Rahil Sharif, he is expected to take up bilateral issues during his meetings with the Afghan leaders. We'll slip into a very short break here, but after that, Saudi airstrikes in Yemen continue despite a 5-day humanitarian ceasefire. More on that when we return. To stay with us.
Hello and a warm welcome to our special report, the program that brings you a ground zero view from whichever part of the country the Rajya Sabha TV cameras are travelling. It is the same village where the Telangana agitation actually began. We at Rajya Sabha TV bring you the first pictures of the landfall site. This is the main nerve centre where the legal battle for the Kaveri water dispute began. When you are moving around this Niyamgiri Hill area, there are 41 streams like these which you have to cross.
No one understands India better than we do. Watch special report only on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha TV. Now, Home Minister Rajnath Singh has assured that India will bring Dawood Ibrahim back to India. Making a statement in Lok Sabha yesterday, he said that India had credible information that the underworld Don was very much in Pakistan. However, Pakistan refuted his claim.
After much flip-flop, the government confirmed on Monday that India's most wanted fugitive, Dawood Ibrahim, is in Pakistan.
अध्यक्ष महोदया, दाऊद इब्राहिम के पाकिस्तानी पासपोर्टों और पाकिस्तान में उसके कथित पतों सहित उससे संबंधित अन्य ब्यौरा समय समय पर पाकिस्तान को इस अनुरोध के साथ मुहैया कराया जाता रहा है कि वे उसका पता लगाएं और उसे भारत को सौंप दें.
Singh's statements came after the government spoke in contradictory voices on the whereabouts of Ibrahim. Last week, Junior Interior Minister H.P. Chaudhary told Parliament that the government had no idea about Dawood's whereabouts.
भारत पाकिस्तान पर अपनी अंतर्राष्ट्रीय बाध्यताओं इंटरनेशनल ऑब्लिगेशंस को पूरा करने, दाऊद इब्राहिम तथा अन्य आतंकवादियों का पता लगाने और उन्हें भारत को सौंपे जाने के बारे में सभी स्तरों पर लगातार दबाव बनाए रखे हुए हैं. और अध्यक्ष महोदया, मैं यह भी कहना चाहूंगा विनम्रता के साथ कि पाकिस्तान को चाहे हमें परसू करना हो, चाहे पाकिस्तान पर हमें प्रेशर बिल्डअप करना हो, हम दाऊद को लाकर ही रहेंगे. यह मैं बात विश्वास के साथ कहना चाहता हूं.
However, Pakistan refuted Rajnath Singh's claim. Pak envoy Abdul Basit said that Islamabad has no clue where the underworld Don is.
इसके बारे में तो मैं यही कह सकता हूं कि वो साहब पाकिस्तान में नहीं है. इससे ज्यादा मैं क्या कहूं.
Dawood is the chief suspect in the Mumbai blast in 1993. Minister of State Kiran Rijiju accused Pakistani agencies of not cooperating with the Indian government while clarifying that Dawood was in Pakistan. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
President Pranab Mukherjee has said that Russia is and will remain India's most important defence partner. He was addressing reporters on board an aircraft after concluding his visit to Moscow. India gets 70% of its arms from abroad. For decades, it has bought off the shelf equipment mainly from Russia, which offered to assemble some weaponry locally, but little in the way of technology transfers. Pranab Mukherjee was among the nearly 30 foreign dignitaries who attended the Victory Day parade in Moscow that was boycotted by Western nations. He has also invited Serbian President Tomislav Nikolic to take the bilateral relations between the two countries to a higher level.
Russia has been a pillar of strength at difficult times of Indian history. India will always reciprocate this support. Russia is and will remain our most important defense partner and a key partner for our energy security, both on nuclear energy and hydrocarbons. We reviewed progress on bilateral issues as well as steps to further enhance and deepen our relations. We also discussed the capacity evolving, the rapidly evolving global political, security and economic scenario. President Putin reiterated his strong commitment to further enhance ties with India, which are marked by an exceptional level of mutual trust.
On to some international news now. Badgered by deadlines and the possibility of implementing painful economic reforms, Greece has been left in the lurch. EU finance ministers met in Brussels to hear what reforms Greece is ready to accept in exchange for fresh cash from its creditors. Risking an exit from Eurozone, Greece is running out of both time and money.
Averting immediate fears of a default, Greece bargained itself a few more weeks before it faces the liquidity crisis. The situation has gone from bad to worse, with crucial differences remaining between Greece and its creditors. Greek Foreign Minister warned they could be staring at a terribly urgent financial situation in the next couple of weeks.
I shall be frank with you. The liquidity issue is a terribly urgent issue. This is common knowledge. Let's not beat about the bush and pretend otherwise.
But Greece is still trying to fend off a referendum on the unpopular economic reforms considered during negotiations. The meeting in Brussels with EU ministers brought up varied views, with Germany suggesting it to opt for the referendum. Eurogroup chairman Jerome Dijsselbloem reiterated the necessity of an agreement, but cautioned that a referendum would further delay the disbursement of the frozen bailout aid.
A referendum is always available to the government and to the President of the Republic in order to elicit the support of the Greek people when it comes to pivotal decisions that need to be made. There is no commitment to use it. It is a tool which is available to the Greek government. At the moment, it's not something that is on the radar screen as far as we are concerned.
It's of course vital not only that we have an agreement on paper, but also that it's being implemented before we start dispersing. Presumably, if you have a referendum, you will not start implementing before you've done the referendum. That doesn't seem to make sense. So there would be a time constraint there.
The crisis has raised the prospect that Greece might default on its debts and be forced to exit the Eurozone. Greece has until the end of June to reach a reform deal with its international creditors to receive the 7.2 billion in remaining EU and IMF bailout funds. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Australia has joined Britain in moving to tackle global companies that evade tax, especially by shifting profits to more relaxed regimes like Singapore and Switzerland. However, rather than attempting to replicate the UK's diverted profits crackdown, Australia is all set to strengthen its anti-avoidance laws. Companies that fail to pay tax on their Australian profits could be forced to pay back double what is owed, plus the interest. Here's more.
The Abbott government in Australia will crack down on tax-evading MNCs who shift profits offshore to minimize taxes. It has 30 companies in its sights. The announcement came a day ahead of the country's 2015-16 budget publication.
These companies are diverting profits earned in Australia away from Australia to no tax or low tax jurisdictions.
The big firms, including Google, Apple and Microsoft, all are accused of moving their profits to countries with lower rates of tax, a charge that they deny. Last month, the country's parliamentarians grilled many of these giants at an upper house Senate hearing on their tax structures. The companies could be fined up to 100% of the amount of tax deemed to be avoided. The laws, which must first pass Parliament, would come into effect on 1st of January next year.
But if they've got a structure, given the size and scale of the fines, which are, as soon as they start to restructure, then you would expect they'd start to pay tax in Australia.
The developments in Australia come amid increased efforts by governments around the world to crack down on global firms that use complex corporate structures to lower their tax bills. Under Australia's leadership last year, the group of 20 leading economies, or G20, endorsed a set of common standards for sharing bank account information across borders with automatic exchange of information among members. Australia says the proposed legislation also drew considerable interest and that its success would help other countries replicate it. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And for more international news and updates, here's the World Wrap. French President Francois Hollande met Cuban President Raul Castro during his one-day visit to Cuba. Hollande's state visit is the first for a French president to Cuba since the former Spanish colony became independent. The European country looks to have a larger role in Cuba's engagement with the West. European Union has sought United Nations help to dismantle criminal groups smuggling migrants across the Mediterranean Sea. European Union leaders agreed last month to identify, capture and destroy vessels before they are used by traffickers. The 28-nation bloc wants UN authorization for this operation. Saudi-led airstrikes continue in Yemen despite a humanitarian ceasefire for 5 days. Saudis targeted military bases and weapon stores in the capital city, Sana'a. It is also mulling to send in its strike forces to Yemen border hours after trading heavy artillery fire with the Houthi rebels. Saudi is leading airstrikes on Yemen since the 26th of March with the aim to restore the exiled president Abdul Rabu Mansour Hadi to power. And now for all the sports update, here's the sports beat. Bayern Munich faces an uphill task against Barcelona in the second leg of the Champions League semi-finals tonight. Bayern's coach Pep Guardiola said that his team will put up a fight in their bid to deny Barcelona an 8th Champions League final. Bayern are chasing a miracle at the Allianz Arena after their 3-0 defeat at the Camp Nou last Wednesday. No team has ever overturned a 3-goal deficit in a European semi-final so far. Liverpool's hopes of Champions League qualification were all but ended as they drew 1-1 at newly crowned Premier League champions Chelsea in their end-of-season encounter. Both goals were headers scored by former England captains, with Chelsea skipper John Terry's 5th-minute opener cancelled out shortly before half-time by his Liverpool counterpart Steven Gerrard. Liverpool now 6 points below Manchester United with 6 points to play for. 6 points to play for and a vastly inferior goal difference. Their top 4 bid is effectively over. All 3 men's seeds playing in the Italian Open in Rome on Monday won through to the second round. Last year's semi-finals, Grigor Dimitrov of Bulgaria beat Poland's Jerzy Janowicz 6-3, 7-6. Frenchman Gilles Simon, who won the Marseille tournament this year, had a slightly harder time to defeat USA's Jack Sock 4-6, 7-6, 6-3. John Isner of the USA beat Portugal's João Sousa 7-5, 6-3. Top seed Novak Djokovic has a bye in the first round. That's it from us this morning. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.